Hello and welcome to The Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm looking at the 1992 series Infinity War. Following the massive success that was the Infinity Gauntlet summer event, Marvel hoped to strike gold again by having Jim Starlin and Ron Lim head another crossover event of cosmic proportions. With this event, they hope to do everything bigger, and you can see that in how they put an increased emphasis on crossovers and having other characters play important roles to the story. The evidence can be seen in the convenient tie-in rundown included with the collected edition. Some of my favorites include the Captain America crossover, mainly because the description starts with, just as he's recovering from a case of lycanthropy, as if that's something totally normal, and the Moon Knight crossover, since it seems to basically be the plot of the Spider-Verse comic, but for Moon Knight. There's also the Warlock in the Infinity Watch series that is running now, and each issue contains a portion of the story happening essentially between panels of the main comic. The downside of this is that it is difficult to just read the Infinity War limited series and feel like you're getting the entire story, making it feel like a more disconnected and incoherent plot than the Infinity Gauntlet. Which is why, with the Infinity War collection, Marvel felt the need to include the tie-in list, as well as the 4 issues of Warlock in the Infinity Watch that directly tie into the story. Despite that, it is still coherent enough of a story that I'm going to cover primarily the limited series, and touch on the extra material only as needed. So let's get on with the war and take this away. The comic opens with our first visit to Thanos' retirement home since the end of Infinity Gauntlet. It also begins with a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche. It's a pretty good quote, I'll admit, and if it was the only one in the whole series, I would be fine with it. Instead, it marks the beginning of Starlin including a quote at the beginning of every single issue he'll write from here on out, not just this limited series, but in other series as well. I really hate when authors do this, and this is going to be no exception to the rule. In an extremely focused story like this one, it can work to an extent, but to have Starlin continue to do it in stories with less focus later on will get to be very annoying. We quickly learn that Thanos' retirement plan wasn't quite as agrarian as he wants people to believe, as he heads down into his basement to reveal a secret laboratory even Dexter could be proud of. It seems something is amiss in the universe, and Thanos is attempting to discover the root of the problem. But something also seems to be amiss at home, as there seems to be a second Thanos lurking around in the shadows. Thanos isn't the only one with a mysterious duplicate either, as we soon see Spider-Man, Iron Man, Wolverine, and Mr. Fantastic all being attacked by warped versions of themselves. Not sure why Mr. Fantastic alone has a duplicate that actually looks like him. I guess so it can be a mystery as to who actually won in their fight. While the heroes battle their deadly doppelgangers, Thanos sets off in search of the mysterious signal he has detected. His search leads him to discovering a comatose eternity before leading him to another dimension, where he finds this massive fortress. It kinda reminds me of Thanos' shrine to death that Surfer destroyed, and I guess that was intentional given Thanos' reaction to it. The fortress is home to this giant crystal that pulses with energy and, are you ready for this? The Magus. At least he got rid of that afro, but seeing how he switched it out for a much more 90s brony tail, I'm not convinced it's an improvement. And what does this guy have against pants? Also, we see here that Thanos' duplicate looks just like him. I really don't get why he and Mr. Fantastic get exact duplicates and everyone else gets weird demonic versions. As you may recall, and as Thanos quickly points out, the Magus shouldn't exist because his timeline was prevented, but as the Magus points out, with Adam alive again, myriad possibilities exist. It seems for this version of old Megs, he was accidentally created when the Infinity Gauntlet wielding Adam Warlock attempted to purge all good and evil from his soul so he could be a purely logical being. Which really makes the temper tantrums he was throwing during the Aftermath stories make even less sense. I kind of like this plot in theory, and if they had done a thing where Adam had to face down both his good and evil sides at the same time, I think it could have worked. What instead we get is a very convoluted plot of just the Magus, still with a singular motivation of being evil purely for the sake of being evil, attempting to manipulate all the heroes, villains, and cosmic entities of the universe in order to gain ultimate power. And yes, that means the Infinity Gauntlet 2, Electric Boogaloo. His plan requires him keeping tabs, as we will see, on all these various groups, though he is not keeping tabs on Dr. Doom, who has noticed the same energy signals that Thanos did, and in order to follow the signals to their source, calls into the present the future conqueror, Kang. The two agree to a temporary truce until they've found the source of the power, which they're convinced will be enough power to give Doom full control of the present and Kang full control over the future he is from. Meanwhile, the various heroes of the universe are being gathered together for an important meeting by Mr. Fantastic. In the vein of bringing in even more characters in this story, he calls on the Avengers, both East and West Coast, the New Warriors and Alpha Flight, the X-Men, and X-Factor. I love how Multiple Man is playing poker with his duplicates. How does that even work? Can you bluff yourself? Everyone meets up at Fantastic Four headquarters, where Multiple Man is still playing poker with himself, so that Mr. Fantastic can explain to everyone the danger they face from their doppelgangers. Wolverine shows up, fashionably late of course, explaining that the nose knows the truth, and his is telling him that Mr. Fantastic and Iron Man are fakes. An argument breaks out while everyone tries to determine the truth, and Iron Man calls Wolvie a racial slur, so yeah, that checks out. Sounds like something the real Iron Man would say. Daredevil uses his sonar sense to realize that Wolverine's right, but not quickly enough to prevent not Mr. Fantastic, Mr. Not So Fantastic, from setting off a gamma bomb. Then all the heroes die. The end. No, of course they don't. Sue Storm manages to divert the blast with an invisible force field, and Thor tornadoes the fallout into outer space? I'm not sure that's how radiation works, but okay. The heroes now realize Mr. Fantastic and Iron Man are definitely full goatee-wearing evil duplicates. Wait, doesn't the regular Iron Man already have a goatee? Before they can act though, the Meg shows up with Dupla Thanos and rescues his two lackeys before disappearing back to home base, leaving the good guys wondering what evil plans Thanos and the very Adam Warlock looking dude are up to. What the actual Adam Warlock is up to though, is chilling on that tropical island we left him and the Watch on at the end of the Aftermath collection. That island turns out to be Monster Island, because it's an island full of giant monsters. What would you call it? It turns out the old Fantastic Four villain Mole Man owns the island, but he gives it to the Watch to use as a home base because he is a man in desperate need of some friends. The real Thanos shows up to ask for Warlock's help in taking down the Magus. After the initial confrontation earlier, the Magus kicked Thanos out of his palace and back to his own universe, with all the data his chair had collected now deleted. So he and the Watch go to find these various energy waypoints that the Magus is using to send his power across to other dimensions. This creates a trail for the heroes to follow, though they're a bit behind Galactus and his entourage of Doctor Strange, Silver Surfer, and Nova, and also behind the Doctor Doom/Kang team-up. The Magus slows down Galactus by blowing up his craft, proving that he already has access to some pretty immense power. That leaves Thanos and the Watch to get a little ahead of him, arriving at another of the waypoints just a little bit before a forward party of Earth's heroes show up there as well. Thinking Thanos is behind their problems like the last time they saw him, a fight immediately breaks out. Meanwhile, back on Earth, those left behind are forced to face down an undying army of doppelgangers. Galactus recovers, rebuilds his ship, and puts an end to both these fights. Everyone is surprised to discover that this time Thanos is attempting to save the universe, not conquer it, but saying he's on the side of the angels might be going a little farther, Doc Strange. At this point, Thanos and Warlock decide, for reasons I'm still not really clear on, that the best way to fight the Magus is to reassemble the Infinity Gauntlet. So Warlock goes to the Watch and collects their gems. Here we see that Pip was keeping his gem between his toes, which is significantly less gross than I was expecting. Still, you may want to disinfect that before you put it back on the glove, Adam. Adam also inexplicably has the Reality Gem, which seems to indicate that the mysterious keeper is one of those gathered here. But this plan doesn't work out so well because apparently part of the Living Tribunal's ruling about the gems needing to be split up also includes denying them the ability to ever again work in tandem. Which, if you ask me, seems to make the point of the Infinity Watch pretty much moot, since the gems are still powerful individually, but not unstoppable. Galactus takes Gamora to the Living Tribunal to appeal for the ability to repower the gauntlet so that the Magus can be stopped. The Tribunal reveals that he gave power over that decision to Eternity himself, and Eternity can't make the call as he's still all vegged out. So Galactus sends Gamora inside of Eternity to fix him. This event takes place entirely in the pages of an issue of Warlock in the Infinity Watch, not the main series, but I feel like it's a pretty notable issue for giving us some of Gamora's backstory. We see her being trained by Thanos, and also that she was once attacked by what seems to basically be a rape gang. Thanos kills all those involved with attacking her, but not before they leave her a shattered, broken mess. Thanos rebuilds Gamora, better, stronger, faster, using cybernetics, which, interestingly enough, is more of a background that will be given to Nebula in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. Inside of Eternity, Gamora learns that he is actually two entities at once, the man who is Eternity and the woman who is Infinity, and together they make up all space and time. Which, okay, I guess. While we were tripping through Eternity, the Magus showed up to kidnap Warlock, and he has been keeping him inside his evil lair, which means he now has the Infinity Gauntlet and has just been waiting for Eternity's ruling to use it. Which means, yeah, literally everything that has happened so far, with the exception of the Doctor Doom portion of the story, was part of the Magus' plan to get to exactly this point. And all the attacks and explosions were just manipulations to get everyone together at exactly the right time in exactly the right place to allow all this to come together. Despite this ridiculous attention to detail, all of the Magus' plans are almost ruined by Thanos giving the hero Quasar the ultimate nullifier and sending him to the Magus' fortress to destroy him. The nullifier is a weapon that's so powerful it said it can actually wipe out entire universes. Just before this point, Dr. Doom and Kang also showed up in the Magus' fortress to discover the source of his power is 5 cosmic cubes that he's gathered from alternate dimensions. Well, they're not all cubes, so more like 5 cosmic polyhedrons? Realizing it'll be too difficult to get to the cosmic 3-dimensional objects while the Magus is still alive, they go and attack him. Since, as I mentioned, these two weren't part of the Magus' plans, he wasn't aware of their presence, so they're able to get the drop on him and destroy his cosmic control console that he's been using to control the cubes. With Quasar only seconds away from firing the nullifier, the Magus makes a mad dash to the cubes to try and use them through direct contact, only to find his containment unit destroyed and the cubes missing. Distracted in his shock, Doom is able to down him and almost gets the gauntlet away from him, but wouldn't you know it, that's right when Eternity wakes up and grants power back to the gauntlet. With ultimate power now his, the Magus banishes Doom somewhere we never see, hangs up Adam as a Christ figure for the second time in his short life, and reverses the ultimate nullifier so that it only nullifies Quasar. He then proceeds to repeat some of the highlights of the previous villains who had the Infinity Gauntlet, including snapping his fingers to make people disappear and building a trophy room of super people. But the Magus isn't as all-powerful as he suspects, as Thanos soon reveals to him. He doesn't actually have the reality gem, just a fake Thanos created using the machines in his chair. This was actually nicely hinted at in the previous issue, when we see the Magus going through each of the gem's powers in turn, but says even he doesn't dare explore the reality gem just yet. He was too distracted by his power to realize that the gauntlet was incomplete. Adam grabs the gauntlet, and his previous ownership of it, especially with it being incomplete, means he's able to fight the Magus for control of the glove. Eternity and Infinity show up as a single joined being to put a stop to the Magus' mad schemes, and though they seem to destroy him, we actually learn that he was sucked into the Soul Gem. Since he is only a portion of Adam's soul and not an entire soul of his own, he is destined to wander forever like a ghost, not seen, heard, or felt by the inhabitants of the Soul World. The comic ends with a mirror shot of the end of Infinity Gauntlet, with Thanos sitting on the front steps of his home and musing to himself about Adam Warlock. But this time, he's thinking about how the missing cosmic polyhedrons could only have been taken by one entity, and that is the other half of Warlock's personality that was ejected, the good side. But that's a story for another day, so let's get to the breakdown. With Infinity War, Marvel and Starlin tried to recreate the magic of Infinity Gauntlet, and to that end, it does hit a lot of the same notes. You have a villain with seemingly limitless power creating cosmic level stakes. You have a big group of Earth's mightiest heroes going on the offensive, only to prove completely ineffectual. You have Warlock as the hero no one is sure that they can trust. You even have direct visual references to the previous story. But they've also replaced the complicated motivations of Thanos with the black and white motivations of the Magus, and a second mad scramble for the Infinity Gauntlet is not what we needed to see, especially so soon after the first time. Also, they increased the number of tie-in comics, making the story even more difficult to follow and to know what was important. For example, there's an entire side story around the Earth being melded with another dimensional version of itself that I didn't even talk about, because it seems like it was only there to give those characters something to do in their own titles. So that's why I'm giving this story a recommendation level of medium. The story still manages to be mostly entertaining, and Ron Lim's art will always get approval from me, but it's still just a poor man's copy of the previous story. Thanks everybody for watching, and we're now over halfway done with the Infinity series. Endgame is still chugging along nicely in theaters, and I'm still chugging along with these reviews. Stick around for the Infinity War Aftermath, followed by the final arc of the Infinity Trilogy, Infinity Crusade. Hope to see you then, right here in the Comic Cave.